Hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars and you're watching episode 109 from the Luthier's Workbench. In this episode I'm going to cover a few different topics. The first is going to be a clarification on my techniques for installing, leveling, recrowning, polishing frets. I just recently posted a playlist on YouTube, and I'll put a link in the description below, where I go into this in a great deal of detail. And that has prompted some discussion on social media, and I thought I would give a little bit of a clarification on that. Then the next thing I want to talk about is a very controversial subject, and I hope to give you a slightly different opinion about it, a different angle, and that is relicing guitars. Should we be doing that? And then I'm going to finish up by talking about just some updates on some of the projects that I'm working on and kind of fill you in on where those stand. So let's get started. If you've watched my other videos on installing and leveling frets, you know that I'm a big advocate of trying to achieve a high level of precision from selecting the woods to carving the neck to radiusing the fretboard and installing the frets. And if you do everything right, there's a good chance you're going to be able to avoid the process of leveling, or at the very least you can minimize it greatly and save yourself a lot of time. Now there are a lot of folks out there who have disagreed with me, and I've argued with them about the subject, and I think that there are some people who just are never going to understand until they've had a chance to build hundreds of guitars. But I have noticed that there are a number of very highly respected and experienced luthiers who agree with me on this subject. They know that if you do everything right, you're not going to have to fall back on the crutch of leveling your frets. And I think a lot of guys do that because they can't achieve a level of precision when fabricating a neck. And it really starts out with selecting the ideal kind of wood for a neck. And what I recommend is to always use straight grain quarter sawn hardwoods like Eastern Rock maple for your neck shaft. And then the fretboard itself should be a very hard straight grain quarter sawn wood. You know, you can get creative and use figured maples and, you know, some of the really crazy grained hardwoods that are out there, you know, like the Bacote, and I've seen a lot of this pale moon ebony and stuff like that. And if you're going to do that, you have to go into it knowing that you're going to absolutely have to level your frets, because those woods are just not as stable as straight grain quarter sawn, high quality, totally dry hardwoods. So, you know, that's I think where there may be somewhat of a disconnect between my philosophy and other people's philosophies about avoiding leveling. And you know, if you do everything correctly, as I said, there's a good chance you're going to avoid it. I would say maybe 50% of the time I'm able to avoid having to do any kind of leveling at all. The rest of the time, it's because the wood is not cooperating as well as I'd like it to, so there may be a high spot here and there. But regardless, because I do try to pay very careful attention to every step of the neck fabrication, fretboard fabrication, and the installation of the frets, I can minimize the amount of leveling that I'm going to have to do. It may just be a little bit of spot leveling here and there. And in the end, my goal is to remove as little material as I can off the top of those frets, and hopefully remove none at all. So, you know, I hope that that kind of makes sense. And I have a feeling it's one of those things that you're either going to agree with or you're just not going to agree with it at all, and there's no way that you can come around unless you experience it for yourself. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh wow, what Chris was saying was right. It is possible to get frets installed so that they're perfectly level. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit more of a explanation into my philosophy of installing, leveling, and doing all that stuff with your frets. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a photo on Instagram of a guitar neck that I was in the process of staining. And I was trying to create a sort of a worn, distressed, almost a dirty look to it. And that neck is going to be used on the cow skull guitar, which I'm also trying to create sort of a worn, vintage, distressed look to it. And in keeping with that theme, I ordered all the components in a chrome finish and then proceeded to put on a patina using muriatic acid. And I've had a couple of comments from folks asking me why I'm doing this. And it's pretty clear to me that there are a lot of folks out there who think that creating an artificial distressed look is somehow immoral, maybe, unethical. And I wanted to express here my thoughts on the subject because I don't view creating a relict, artificially aged finish is wrong. If I was going to be trying to create or build a fake 1959, Les Paul or Stratocaster, and I wanted to maybe pull the wool over someone's eyes and make them think, that this brand new guitar is somehow an old vintage guitar and, sell it for big bucks, then yeah, that's absolutely unethical and immoral. And it's not something I would ever do. But in my view, building a brand new guitar like this and creating that distressed look is just a finishing technique. That's all it is. It's just a style, a look, nothing more. And if you feel that the only way that you can legitimately achieve that look is to buy a guitar and play it for 30, 40 years until it naturally achieves that look, fine, whatever, more power to you. But what happens if the guy who wants to buy this guitar is 75 years old and doesn't have 35, 40 years to wait around to get that look? And it's just a look. And I'm not going to try to pass this off as some kind of old vintage look. It's going to be sold as simply a distressed style guitar, a relic guitar. And I'm going to be very clear about that when I sell it. And think of it as, buying a pair of blue jeans that are faded and have holes in the knees. People pay big money for that kind of stuff. And you may not agree with it, but it doesn't make it wrong. So, I suggest you kind of get over yourself and not worry so much about whether a guitar has nice shiny finish or a distressed look to it. And honestly, it's a lot of fun to do, and I plan to shoot some videos in the future showing the techniques that I use to do this, because there are other videos out there that talk about it. But I found that there's quite a bit you can do to create some different patinas and different looks on the components. So that'll come down the road. Okay, so the last thing I thought I would cover is just a quick update on some of the projects that I'm currently working on. I mentioned the cow skull guitar, and that is at a point now where I can start final assembly. I've just got to wind the pickups, which I will do over here probably tomorrow or maybe Monday, I don't know. We'll just see how the schedule goes. But then once I have that done, I can start actually bolting everything together, and that will complete this guitar. I was also working on a left-handed Clarksdale design that I have finished, and that guitar has been sold. So I'm kind of thinking maybe some lefties might be in the future. Who knows? I've been thinking about experimenting with some left-handed guitars. Give the lefties an option for a one-off, custom guitar. And then I have the Sci-Fi guitar, which has been clear-coated and level sanded and buffed to a high gloss shine. And I'm just waiting for a couple of parts to come in on that. I'll probably wind the pickups for this one while I'm winding the pickups for the cow skull guitar. And then the neck is completely finished. I installed the frets yesterday, and that's the neck that I was kind of holding earlier. This one is a flame maple neck. And as I said before, I don't like to normally use flame maple because it's unpredictable. But this guitar is probably rarely, if ever, going to get played. It's going to be hung up as a decoration for a customer. So I'm not too worried about the flame maple posing an issue. And I've recently come across some interesting finishing techniques that I am going to be experimenting with. And of course, if they work, I'll share them with you. But they involve using a large number of acrylic, water-based acrylic paints, which are applied in such a way to create some really incredible patterns. And I want to try that out on the guitar. I've seen it done on YouTube before, and I really think it would look so cool on a guitar. And I've got some ideas about how I'm going to do this. So I plan to experiment when the time presents itself, and I can do that. And so I'll shoot video on that and share it with you. But that's really all there is going on right now. I will post the next episode hopefully next week. I, of course, will be uploading a quick tips roughly midweek, which as I've been doing before. And, of course, if you want to stay up to date on what I'm putting out there, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button, and always, feel free to comment, and I'll keep your comments and try to answer them as often as I possibly can. And, of course, if they're nasty, obscene, irrelevant, I'll delete them because I can do that. You have to remember there are young kids who watch these videos as well, so that's why I try not to be so objectionable in everything that I do. And I think that's one of the reasons why some of the other guys out there are slowly fading away from YouTube. So anyway, we will see you in the next episode. Until then, have a great weekend, a great week ahead, and we'll see you soon.